Simon, throw your weight behind this or otherwise. UEFA set to impose a cap on lengthy contracts as they bid to close what's being viewed as an FFP loophole. I mean, this has really come to the fore after the practice has been used by Chelsea under Todd Bowley. Signing players in contracts of up to 8.5 years to spread the impact of transfer spending. UEFA now set to, hang on, no. We're going to enforce a 5-year maximum for the length of time over which a player's transfer fee can be spread, with a new policy being brought in before the next window in the summer. So is it a sensible move by UEFA or a restriction of trade?
I think it's a restriction of trade.
Really?
I think the whole idea of valuing players on a straight line depreciation is not reflective of the transfer market in the first place and is fundamentally wrong anyway, because ultimately players can increase and decrease in value depending upon their form. So when you just depreciate someone in a straight line, then I don't think it's right. Because effectively, if you've got a player that you bought for 80 million quid and after 2 years he's valued on your balance sheet at 40 million quid, but really he set the world on fire and he could be worth 80 million quid still, I think it artificially depreciates the balance sheet of a football club and disadvantages them. I don't necessarily, what's getting around financial fair play? Oh, I know, getting sponsors that are indexed to your football club and part of your ownership model to inflate their deals to be able to give you more revenue. That's more like getting around financial fair play. Capitalising and being prepared to have the consequences as well, of course. People just are looking at the upside. The consequence of signing a player for an 8-year deal is you have that liability for 8 years of wages. So it isn't just a one-way transaction of, let's see if we can get around financial fair play on transfer values. It also comes with a sting in its tail because you've got that person having to pay them £300,000 a week or £200,000 a week for 8 years. So it comes with the yin and the yang, and I don't understand why FIFA would want to get involved, or UEFA in this instance, would want to get involved with telling people how they can capitalise. The transfer system is based upon people being put on someone's balance sheet over the contract term. If a football club wants to increase that contract term, who are UEFA to turn around and then say, actually, now, because you remember when Mel Morris wanted to revalue players on a different basis? No, can't do that. It's a simple policy. He's got to be depreciated over the contract term. No, we don't like it now because it doesn't suit certain people that don't like the fact that people are spending a lot of money and are thinking about it commercially. So we'll change it. It makes no sense, Jim. I think it's a silly change of rule.
Make sense of this for me. Mudryk signed this week by Chelsea, or last week, whenever it was. He was at Anfield at the weekend. So he joins Chelsea on an 8.5-year deal.
He does.
Are UEFA right to raise an eyebrow to that?
No, well, no, because
what's the thing? It's got to be to get round FFP.
Because listen. I've just given you the example
of spreading the fee.
Well, of course it is, but the economics of also spreading the liability of a player's salary over a longer period of time also hits your implications of financial fair play, because you're going to have that player on your balance sheet in 4 years' time with no capital value and a big wage bill. So it cuts you another way.
So why are they doing it? Hopefully we'll get a chance to ask Todd Bowley this ourselves. Why are they doing it?
Well, I suspect influential clubs don't like the dynamic of Todd Bowley coming in and trying to think creatively about what are the big assets. What's the big cost in football? The big cost in football is transfer fees and wages. Okay, how do I make sense of these? How do I make sense of it? Why should I depreciate? If I'm prepared to have this player for 8 years on £25 million a year wages or whatever he's on, why should I have to not be able to capitalise his value over 8 years? Why shouldn't I be able to have him on?
But why 8 years?
7, 6, why 5? Why have UEFA suddenly decided, we know what, we'll have you for 5? What?
I know, but when they announced it last week, and we said 8.5-year deal, you saw the messages. 8.5-year deal? What's the thinking in that? So what is the thinking other than it's a loophole?
Well, the clear thinking on that is if you recruit properly, good players stay at clubs for long times if you're an ambitious football club. John Terry spent his entire career at Chelsea. So with that in mind, I know he's a product of the academy, but notwithstanding it, if you buy good players in the right way, with the right methodology and put the right managers in, they should stand the test of time. So
Simon, it gets you know more than I do. So it gets around restrictions. It allows Chelsea to spend a lot more money than they might be able to have done.
And then it allows Chelsea to have it up their backside somewhere along the line 4 years later when they're just paying wages with a player that's massively depreciated. So it cuts both ways.
I mean, how long is Mudryk going to be at Chelsea?
Well, it also puts Chelsea in control of a situation. If this player, after 3 years, is killing it, right, then Madrid come along and go, we fancy him, he's got a year left in his contract. They don't have that situation anymore. Chelsea are now in control of that player's registration for 8 years. Why would the player sign an 8-year contract? Think about the player. So why aren't the PFA popped up? Why aren't they saying, because they've got lots to say for themselves about nothing, why aren't they turning around and saying, we think this is great. This is giving top professional security of contract. Why aren't they popping up with their two penneth? Because that's the other side of the argument. I don't believe this is right.
You don't believe it's right?
No, I believe it's absolutely right. You should put a player on a contract and they should depreciate over the contract you're prepared to give them. The rules are...
So you would do what Bully's doing?
Damn straight I would if I was in a situation where I was buying players that were good enough to put on 8-year contracts.
So what do you make of this then? Speaking about transition periods on Michael Calvin's Football People podcast, Jurgen Klopp had a real swipe at Chelsea.
There are obviously plenty of ways, different ways you can do it, but it's all based on the situation you are in, and especially with the things happening around Chelsea with new ownership, obviously. Nobody knows exactly now how they do it, how they can spend that much money, stuff like this, other teams. So nobody likes me talking about that because it's okay you talk about it, but a transition needs time, usually, if you don't have endless money. So otherwise you can change overnight pretty much, and you bring in 10 players and other 10. And if you wouldn't, last week I got a question about if I'm too loyal. I really think I'm not too loyal, but questioning loyalty in general is a sign of our time, the time we are living in as well. So which I really don't like too much.
What a load of old contradictory crap. If you turn around to a manager and said, I'm going to give you 10 players now, the first thing the media will say is, oh, too many players, can't build a team overnight, they've got to gel together. Now he's saying, oh, I could change a team overnight by bringing in 10 players. Make your minds up, riddle me this, riddle me that. Whatever you haven't got is the reasons why you complain about something else. There is nothing, the rules allow Chelsea, the regulations are very simple. You can depreciate a player over his contract length. If you want to sign a player for 8 years, why would they change the rules? What, because other people don't like it? Is that how it works then? Other people don't like the rules because they think that someone's gaming the system.
But is it not quite simple? It allows people, in this case, Bully at Chelsea,
but you're not
to
listening.
Spend a lot of money at once.
But you're not listening because it allows people to have bigger liabilities further down the line. It'll catch up with Chelsea at some point.
But it's a risk they're willing to take.
Because Chelsea are going to take a player on a contract and commit themselves to, let's say this kid's on 200 grand a week. They're going to commit themselves to 80 million pounds of wages when in previous incarnations they'd only commit themselves to 40. If he turns out to be a stinker, like the fellow at Arsenal, Pepe, right? What are you going to do then? You've now got it for 8 years wrapped around you. Would that be as clever? So if Chelsea are prepared to run their business that way, why change the rules? Because a few people think, hang on a second, they're gaming the system. No, they're following the rules. And they're following it based upon contract depreciation. And I think it's an absolute outrage. This industry is almost already immature enough about how it values players.
You once said to Mel Morris in this studio, what you're doing is cute. Is this cute?
It's cute because Mel was bending the rules.
Is this cute?
Is it cute? No, it's thinking its way...
It's cute. You almost agree with me.
It's thinking its way through the conundrum of spending... First and foremost, the transfer market is ridiculous. If we've got to pay these outrageous amounts of monies for these little Herberts to kick a ball around at £100 million like Jack Grealish, right, then you shouldn't have to depreciate them that way.
God,
but it is. I'm right.
They're not worth to be brought into it at some stage, wasn't they? Oh,
yeah, they're not worth 100 million quid. So if we've got to pay these inflated transfer market prices to be able to sustain football, then surely to God these football clubs should be able to capitalise these players on whatever damn contract they feel like putting them on.
See, I knew you'd go with the clubs. I knew you'd go with the
in
people
this
at the
instance,
top of the clubs.
No, I don't like... Listen, I don't like 450 million quid being spent in two transfer markets by one football club. I think
that's what we're
outrageous,
asking.
Right? But the fact of the matter is, the argument is that Chelsea are prepared to take that business model in the same way that Manchester City, Newcastle, PSG and people have done before and try and fold it down into an economic model that complies with the rules. They're not trying to get sponsorship from their own in-house sponsors and inflate it like some people have done. Who would that be? I don't know. Maybe we can have a think about that in the break.
You can never resist having a swipe at a player kind of like Nicolas Pepe got it there.
But he was useless.
Jack got it there. I mean...
He's not useless, but, you know...
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.